13 women, 21 stages, 3,480 kilometers, and one demand: to have a Tour de France for women, because so far it's a men-only competition.
We want to show that women can accomplish extraordinary things too. By doing something that may look a bit crazy, we're getting people to listen to us.
Their plan is to cycle the entire Tour de France, all 3,480 kilometers, exactly one day ahead of the men. We're in Brussels, where the Tour de France will start this year. Tomorrow, these 13 women set off from here. Now they're making last-minute preparations, sorting out their helmets, jerseys, and shoes.
Everybody decked out? Anyone need a Digest Plus? This isn't doping. This is all legal. It's all natural ingredients. These are food supplements.
Claire Fleuret is the one behind the Donnant des Ailes au Vélo project, which roughly translates to Let's Get Women on Bikes. She's been doing the Tour de France every year since 2015, no matter the circumstances.
The first time we did the tour, there were just 3 of us, and we didn't know if we'd budgeted enough money. On the trip, we stayed with families, cooked our own meals, and washed our jerseys by hand every evening. It was do-it-yourself, basically. That was a real adventure.
Things have become much more professional in recent years. Now the women have a sponsor. Without this financial support, they'd be hardly able to pay for their bike equipment and accommodation. None of the women are professional cyclists. Claire, for example, works as a sports teacher and organizes this competition in her spare time.
Organising all this is exhausting, but it's okay because it's my passion. Right now it leaves me little free time for anything else because I'm totally focused on this project. But in 1 or 2 years, when there will hopefully be a women's Tour de France, it will have paid off.
In central Brussels, the morning before the race, the women are preparing to set off. Tomorrow, just a few hundred meters from here, the Belgian king will send off the men competing in the Tour de France. And then, somewhat unceremoniously, they're off. Unlike during the actual Tour de France, the roads are not blocked off to cars, so they must carefully weave in and out of traffic. And there's much less pomp and glamour than during the men's race. They have to deal with red lights, oncoming cars, and other challenges. The women will cover a distance of 3,480 kilometers, cycling through the Vosges, the Pyrenees, and the Alps, climbing to an altitude of 2,770 meters. But it's not about setting new records. All these women cyclists want is to be treated with the same respect as their male peers.
I started cycling as a sport late when I was 24. And at some point I realized that I'd never seen a women's peloton on TV. Even though there are plenty of women involved in competitive cycling, but they never feature on TV. I wanted to change that.
Some hardcore cycling fans have already gathered along the route to get a good view of the men's Tour de France. Quite a few are impressed by the women taking on this challenge.
The men get all the backing and attention they could hope for, but the women don't receive enough. That's why we're here to cheer them on.
Anyone up for it can even cycle along with them for part of the journey. Everyone's invited, no matter their gender.
I think they have a point. Why is there a Tour de France for men and not for women? Surely there's room for both.
Cycling along with the women has become really popular. Now, for security reasons, only 100 athletes are allowed on the road at any one time.
So many cyclists have joined us. It's amazing. That means our message is being heard. And that's a fantastic feeling.
4 days and 650 kilometers later, we're in Saint-Dié-de-Vosges in the Vosges Mountains. A tough section lies ahead. But thankfully, Claire is in great shape and up for the challenge. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, she competed in the French Cycling Championships.
It's not a steep climb, but it drags on.
Unlike the men who get nutritious snacks passed on to them on the go, the women have to pull over to eat. That, along with navigating road traffic, slows them down considerably, meaning that they need almost twice the time men do for a day's stage. A small team of volunteers accompanies the women on their journey, helping with preparations. This is the second year now that Oscar Maya has signed up to support them. He even took a break from his student job so he could be here.
It's a race against the clock during these 3 weeks. The more we help the women, the more time they have to recuperate.
Carbohydrate-heavy food and fruit give them the necessary energy to get back on that bike.
So far, things have been going all right, but we still have half of the climb ahead of us. The toughest bit is still to come. Le Chevrier and La Planche de Bellefille are really steep, we'll see.
Every day, the women spend 8 to 9 hours biking. That obviously takes its toll, with muscle cramps and the like a common problem. Luckily, they've got 3 physiotherapists on the team traveling with them. When needed, they set up their massage tables in the hotel hallways. In the evenings, they're super busy giving the women a rub-down.
Yesterday was a hard day. We cycled for 215 kilometres, and the last 90 were really painful. Our muscles got all tense, but now I'm getting my toxins massaged out of my muscles, so I'll be ready for tomorrow.
Though with their busy schedule, they don't always have time for an evening rub-down. Often, they meet local sports clubs and even mayors after a day's cycling. Like here in Nancy, for example. It tends to garner them admiration, though sometimes people doubt they'll pull off the whole tour.
Do you think you'll make it to the end?
We've been doing this for 5 years, and so far only one participant ever gave up. That's 1 out of 22 in the last 4 years. 22 made it to the finish line. So there's no reason to believe all 13 of us won't make it this year. Women always need to prove themselves, because people tend to think that men are more capable.
Day 2 in the Vosges. This year, Claire and her fellow female cyclists are supported by an international women's team, with athletes from England, the US, and Australia. Australia's Pippa Lyon did not mind traveling this far to participate. Along the route, her 11-month-old son is there to cheer her on.
Since having him, it's made it even more important to me to just show to the next generation, boys and girls, that women can do exactly the same as men. Yes, we can't do things as fast or as strong, but we can do it, and we can do it really well.
Each year, there are more and more people calling for there to be an official women's Tour de France. But so far, these demands have fallen on deaf ears. Even though back in the 1980s, the organizers did once stage a women's race along with the men's, but then rescheduled the event, and that was the end of it. Christian Prudhomme, in charge of the Tour de France, doesn't want to tell us what he thinks about this. Instead, he sends this statement. Mr. Prudhomme already answered many times questions about the possibility of organizing during the Tour de France a Tour de France for women. The answer is still the same. Organizing another race at the same time for 3 weeks is logistically not possible. There is some truth in this. The Tour de France is the world's third biggest sporting event. 4,500 helpers are needed just to prepare the route, and almost 30,000 police officers and firemen are on duty to maintain security. And some say that staging another race just requires too much work. But David Lepartillot, the president of the International Cycling Union, thinks a women's competition could be a great success.
We will have to work on a solution and examine the technical problems and circumstances. I think we can address these challenges, and I am convinced that women's cycling can appeal to a large audience. And then female athletes will finally get the recognition they deserve.
The good news is that in 2014, the Tour de France organizers did begin staging a one-day women's race during the men's competition. But for Claire, that's not enough.
I ask myself, why should we be happy with a one-day race when we are capable of going for days over several stages, days and weeks? A one-day race is not comparable to one that goes over several stages, because over time cycling teams develop, and it's something different for viewers too, and from a sports perspective as well. So I think women are entitled to a proper race.
For now, much hard work still lies ahead of the cyclists, even though they've mastered the first steep stages. It's still a long way until they reach their final destination, Paris. And it will also take a long time until there's a proper women's Tour de France. But giving up is out of the question.
This is the 5th time I'm doing this. And I hope I don't have to keep going for another 15, because it certainly is hard work, and it gets harder by the year. Besides, I want to start a family at some point. The good news is, should I stop, others will take my place.